So I may be jumping to conclusions here, but if you've seen Emily Blunt do interviews every now and then, every now and then there'll be a time where she maybe kind of brushes off, or she's asked about roles that she didn't really care for once she took them, or movies that she doesn't really care for now, but it's just one of those sort of, throwaway answers that's just never really acknowledged. And for some reason, I just can't help but think this might be one of those. I don't recall ever hearing her mention this one much. Maybe it could just be because it just is something that sort of came and went or whatever. Or she had a much more other memorable movie with Bill Nye, but still, and there is like a special feature on this DVD that's just called like On Target with Emily Blunt. That's probably just like some interview or something, I assume. Um, I meant to look at it before I did this, but I didn't. And so yeah, I could really buy if that happened to be one of those. But the thing about that though is it comes from Jonathan Lynn, who did like Clue and My Cousin Vinny and another black comedy about hitmen or hit people, The Whole Nine Yards. So there seems to be an awful lot of promise here when you look at the fact that he's the director and the cast and the subject matter. Things should have probably come together a little bit, but I don't know. There is, because we start off and there's, the two major characters are her and Bill Nye, of course, and with him, we get this real quick opening where he's like learning French while simultaneously killing people just to show how smooth he is. And it's, the jobs are like really secretive, like nobody knows what he looks like, even the people employing him. He's paid and he's literally paid half now, half later, meaning he gets the bills in halves and he has to put them together himself in order to get that. So, and then on the other side with her, we've got our intro is just her riding her bike through the streets, but then she starts like riding through and like stopping traffic and making everything basically stop around her. She keeps like firecrackers in the basket on her bike. She pedals through this museum. There is the whole walking through the streets and just taking people's like scarves or coats as she goes, and just kind of gives this sort of general Hellraiser sort of vibe. And it turns out that she also, she and Rory Kinnear specialize in fake paintings that they try to sell off as the real thing, and they eventually cross Rupert Everett when they do this. And if there's one thing you don't want to do, it's cross Rupert Everett when he is one of the villains in a comedy, because it kind of sucks that like every time Rupert Everett plays a villain, it seems to be in a movie that ends up being not very good. Because it's like just such this over-the-top joy to watch. He doesn't get to do like that much here, and the movie basically abandons him halfway through. And this is our setup with him hiring Bill Nye to kill her over this, and interesting complications ensue. It is a story that's built on contrivances, many of them pretty much throughout. The first one, basically, that he doesn't kill her for reasons that are a little unclear. I'm guessing because when he's walking around and, like, looking for her, I don't think he's quite seeing her face, and then it's that moment when he's on the balcony after he's listened to her very long night with this front desk guy or whatever, and it's finally then when she opens the window that he sees her face, and he can't pull the trigger for one reason or another. And we pretty much assume it's going to be a whole falling in love thing, and like, if you had seen Gideon's daughter prior to this, it's like, that'd be a really fucked up double feature, wouldn't it? But, it does go in some interesting and weirdly a bit confusing directions. The characters should not be this confusing in a movie like this. But it is, it's got something here. When I talked about the fact that this is the same director that did The Whole Nine Yards, which did the black comedy thing so well, and this does, at the start, have like a very dark sense of humor about it that I kind of love, that I kind of wish was more prominent than just like these opening scenes. like for instance, when and this may, maybe they lightened it up a little bit to make Nye's character more likable, because given that they eventually want to do the thing where everybody in this movie is lovable regardless how bad of a person they are, we get scenes at the beginning, like when he's chasing after her, trying to kill her, and there's just a curtain for a changing room. And instead of looking in it to make sure it's her, he is so certain it's her, he just shoots through it, and we hear somebody die. And then we see her walk out from the other side, and we realize that is not her he just killed. That was just a totally, completely innocent person changing into clothes. And we don't even see their body. He just leaves them there and continues on his way. And just, it's never mentioned again. That that poor victim. And there's something so darkly hilarious about that. And the movie promises that, but doesn't quite ever go that far again. When there's like so many opportunities to do something like that, they just sort of don't. That's just another thing they just sort of abandon halfway through. So that's unfortunate. And then I was talking about the contrivances this is built on top of the fact that it remains unclear for most of the movie why he's not killing her, because they do the whole. There's like the one scene that suggests maybe, possibly a little bit he might be gay. Which he sets up, but then immediately denies. I don't know, because their relationship does kind of seem to go back and forth in what exactly it is. So whatever prompted him to do it in the first place, or not do it in the first place, is hard to say. But then there's the introduction of the Rupert Grint character, and saying that it's an introduction is being really generous to it. He just kind of walks into this movie, and everything around him just accepts it, and he just goes with it. It's literally, he's just happens to be there, and then he just happens to have a gun, and that's even pretty much his wording. It's like, I just happen to have this gun, so I could stop that dude from killing you. And this is enough to say, okay, come with us forever now. So there's that. And just sort of the annoying nature of his character in general, and it's because we do have a kind of a problem here in regards to these characters we're supposed to like fall in love with. I mean, obviously she makes it relatively easy, but with like, obviously we know how amazing of an actor Bill Nye is, so it's actually really surprising that the character just comes off really flat for most of the movie. And obviously he's kind of supposed to be a bit emotionless until she sort of like brings out another side to him. But I mean, even then, it just feels like there's something missing here, and the Rupert Grint character is just so uncharmingly annoying, like throughout the whole thing. Once again, it seems to be what they're going for, but not in a way that it matters to you when they try to make him likable. And I don't throw this at Nye or Grint at all. I think when you look at these characters, those criticisms kind of solely go back to the writing, because that's just sort of how the characters exist. Like, there's really not much way to go around that. So that's really unfortunate. So it's pretty much entirely up to her to carry this. Another contrivance that occurs to me is, like, the entire first half of this movie is that shortly after he's been hired by Rupert Everett to kill her, and he is actively looking for her, especially when Nye doesn't kill her. And, like, wouldn't you know it, they decide that they're going to hide out at a hotel. And she even says as they're walking into the room, so it is safe here, right? And wouldn't you know it, who's in the room across the hall but fucking Rupert Everett for some reason. So it's just one of those movies that it just entirely builds itself on, we didn't really want to do anything clever with this. So as I said, so the movie pretty much falls entirely on her shoulders for a while. So she's got to deal with this character almost feels like, or this performance really, both, sort of feel like a precursor to the Arthur Newman character, Mike, because in both cases she's a character that's like kind of really hard to understand at first. Like how I was talking about with Arthur Newman, where Blunt had to like read the script over and over again to even get it herself. But here it's like, and it's also the same way where it's like we're never quite sure exactly how full of shit she is. We know she is to some extent, but like how far does that go? at what point are we, like, you know, crossing the line to where she's not full of shit anymore. And it's a lot more vague here. Interestingly enough, given how complex the character in Arthur Newman is, it's like just the writing is just so jumbled and messy here. It's like this character's even more hard to gauge, and I don't know that that's entirely intentional. But I mean, surely, probably a little bit, but not to the extent that it is. And then it gets to a point where it feels like, you know, there's some things missing here. Because obviously they do, you know, like, they'll use it for humor a little bit in regards to how much she is full of shit. Like when she's simultaneously fake crying while she's digging through the dead dude's pockets. But then you've also got stuff where she, like, hates Nai's character with a passion, like, immediately. And when the first time she mentions that, when she says, like, I just really hate you, there's, like, such a sincerity in it. It's like we missed something. And it's like the writers just completely jumped into something else without, like, anything in the middle. And it's because they have not known each other near long enough for her to hate him as much as she so clearly does when she says that. So I don't know where that comes from, but then there's stuff, you know, that's kind of relatable, like, it's because the Grin character is so annoying. It is kind of funny to see her annoyance with him also, and the way she reacts to him or responds to him. The whole Fig thing, for example, when she just shuts his shit down, it's just stuff like that is really funny though. But once again, that does come at the cost of having an annoying character you have to deal with through the whole movie. So it depends on which one you want more, I guess. But there are these moments where she does bring, like, she's able to bring, like, a spark to it in the way that they aren't quite able to pass that line of just how far back the writing held them back. She is able to break through and have those moments where, like when Grant accidentally unplugs his earphones and she does that little dance, or when she's, like, trying to show Nai, like, her back teeth and stuff like that. That probably sounds weird without context if you have no idea what the scenes are, but she makes these very charming, so there is that. And then she does finally find a way to make us feel sorry for the character. Like, there's that one scene when she's, like, she really genuinely appreciates him helping her insomnia. So she goes out at 6 in the morning and digs for him. She's, like, digging for magnolias or something. And it's just, there is something, like, really heartfelt in that, especially with the way they're both reacting to this. And it does, like, it's, like, kind of the first real glimpse of humanity we see in her character. And then, from then on, you kind of see that she does find a way to put something in this character where you're never quite against her, regardless of how conniving we know she is, but that's just the brilliance of what she can do, really. Especially when we're dealing with the subject matter and the kind of movie that it is, because she has to kind of go back and forth between doing, like, real, genuine fear and, like, comic fear. Like when Nai's mom blasts a hole through the door, just that scream that she does it's definitely, she knows, like, the huge difference between when to really play up the fear for real and when it's gonna be, like, overblown and comedic. So there's definitely a balance there, but like I said, that's, as you can tell, it's really her desperately carrying this movie on her shoulders. And she does as much as she possibly can. The only thing that's going to help her out is rather late in the movie, around the time they say, you know what, forget this whole Rupert Everett thing. We've got another villain, is when they finally introduce the Martin Freeman character, who's like this. He's sort of like a rival assassin to Nye, only he's much more reckless about it and much more ruthless. And he does have, like, this really kind of cool coldness about him. He's kind of a character you kind of want to see in, like, a serious movie. But unfortunately he's stuck in this one. And gets a very disappointingly anticlimactic end to such a decent character, but honestly, I can't tell if it's a decent character or if just, you know, given the movie around him, he looks a lot better than he does. But I would like to have seen more of that character, have more of an impact, or really make him like the main villain through the whole thing, and not just like halfway through say, oh, by the way, this character exists, fear him. So yeah, so I think the main problem is that obviously there needs to be a bit more going on with the Nye and Grin characters to make the scenes more like genuine when they're at his house and they have the birthday party and all that, and it's like it just feels more like the screenwriters telling us, hey, this is the time we care about them, as opposed to us like really genuinely feeling it. And it really needed to explore that darkness in it that it so desperately wanted to do. Like I said, you've got a director here that like specializes in that, and like this is what comes out. It's like that's also kind of something that makes you think like something had to have gone horribly wrong in the script stage for us to get here, because everything else working is like this should be a no-brainer how good this should have been. But here we are, and it gets like sillier as it goes. It's like it gets farther away. Like I said, the Freeman death scene is like kind of going back in that direction, but like I said, it really just pisses you off how anticlimactic it is, and it doesn't even occur to you, oh, they brought back the dark comedy. I missed that. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those cases where I hate doing this because of her. I want so badly to like it, especially with how much she's putting into it. But it's kind of a tough sit, especially the longer it goes. But she really tried, so we can at least commend her for that. So yeah, so I think that's about it for this one. So we'll go on to the next one.